Chapter 704, Canuta. The short man suddenly began to attack Phoenix Courtrin, and this made the atmosphere in the tavern suddenly become as cold as an ice cellar. Some people had already begun to sneak outside, afraid that the conflict that would erupt next would affect them. After all, these several fourth squad cadres were ruthless murderers. They could kill for fun at any time if they felt like it. The short man continued to stare at Phoenix Courtrin. "Tell me, what did you mean by that?" "What? Damn it, call me, I'm damn interesting." His eyes were as sharp as knives. A villain with blood-stained hands did not have such eyes. But Phoenix Courtrin was still smiling. He said indifferently, "You're damn interesting." The short man's face fell, and his hand slowly reached inside his overcoat. This action was done in front of Phoenix Courtrin without the slightest bit of concealment. But very suddenly, he pointed at Phoenix Courtrin and laughed. "Damn, this guy's got some nerve. I thought I almost had you fooled." Several pirates nearby were also laughing loudly. "Hey, Druna, you lost us both machine guns." The short Druna shook his head helplessly. "I underestimated him." Phoenix Hall still wore a smile as he looked at these pirates whose moods were so unpredictable. This kind of childish trick might be able to fool the others. But compared to him, the so-called evil deeds of these pirates were not even worthy of being called playing house. He was the real villain. "Who told you to come here?" Phoenix Court swallowed a mouthful of whiskey, put the empty glass aside, and said to the bartender in a light tone, the dosage of the drug was too small. The bartender's face changed slightly, but he just smiled and reached out to take the glass. Druna said to Phoenix Court, "Let's go, there's someone who wants to see you. He's very interested in what you said today." A flash of amusement crossed Phoenix Court's eyes. He knew that those greedy and arrogant pirates could not remain indifferent to his words. No matter how much the Dragon King forbade it, there would always be people who would take the risk. Otherwise, they would not be pirates. Phoenix Courtrin followed the four pirate cadres into a car, and after a long drive around the Dragon Island, they arrived at a huge ironclad warship. This was the location of the fourth squadron of the Tenryu pirates. The huge ironclad ship was the ship of the captain of the fourth squadron, Canuta. After hearing Phoenix Courtrin's explanation, the small, brown-skinned pirate from the southern seas had a strong desire in his heart. He had heard about Eclipse Moon's rampage in the Jiangnan region. In his opinion, just 13 Ronin were causing the Jiangnan region so much trouble. His powerful 4th Battalion, on the other hand, had thousands of pirates and more than 30 powerful aliens under its command. If he could cooperate with Eclipse Moon and go to that rich land to loot, then in the future, Canut's name would be known throughout the world. It was even possible that he would be valued by the Dragon King and become the boss of one of the 7-ship battalions. Phoenix Courtrin arrived at Canut's residence. The thin man with brown skin and a hooked nose stared at him with a menacing expression. "Rogue! Is what you said to the Dragon Lord true? Is the Jiangnan region really as weak as you said?" The smile on Huan's lips grew wider. He opened his hands and said, "Of course not. If we fight them head-on, for example, by attacking their headquarters, Blizzard City, directly, there is no way we can win with just the 13 of us. I am very clear about this." But, his voice rose a few decibels, "their territory is so vast. It is larger than an average country. But they don't have enough manpower to defend every piece of land." Phoenix Courtrin extended his hand towards Canuta. "We won't be stupid and fight them head-on. We will just keep harassing them and make them tired and exhausted. By then, we can get everything we want. If only we Eclipse Moon act on our own, the gains will be limited. That's why I've come to seek your cooperation. With the strength of your Tenryu pirates, you can definitely plunder to your heart's content." Phoenix Courtrin shrugged his shoulders and said with slight regret, "Unfortunately, I have somewhat overestimated the courage of the king of the Tenryu." Canut's eyes flashed with murderous intent as he shouted, "Shut up! Who are you to judge our king?" Seeing this, Phoenix Courtrin gave a light smile and pushed his palm. "Sorry, I didn't mean to offend. It's just that such a good opportunity, once missed, will never come again." He said with a smile, "You will also find it difficult to find helpers like us." Canet narrowed his eyes. He said slowly, "We are going to the Jiangnan region via the Southern Sea, and the biggest problem is their navy. You say there is a way to help us bypass our naval defenses?" Phoenix Courtrin nodded with a smile. "Of course. If we couldn't do it, how would we have landed in that land?" With Mayumi Takeuchi by their side, they could avoid all dangers, and Zhang Yi was an exception that time. Ha. Interesting, very interesting. Canute's cold eyes stared at Phoenix Courtrin for a long time before he grinned and said, "In that case, let's do something big together." Phoenix Courtrin laughed and said, "Then I wish us a happy collaboration." Before the words had finished, an icy pistol was pressed against his forehead. "Don't play any tricks on me, or I'll be sure to kill you myself." Phoenix Courtrin ignored the pistol on his forehead. "Of course, we are partners now, aren't we?" Zhang Yi sighed. He only stayed in Tianhai City for 1 day after returning. He handed over the 4 chemical compounds to Zhoukur, scraped some of the powder for research, and the rest was still carried by Zhang Yi for emergencies. He, on the other hand, returned to Blizzard City with a few people. This time, in addition to Liang Yu and Hua Hua, he brought Yang Xinqin. The 3 of them took the Blizzard City Express to Blizzard City. As soon as they got off the train, they saw 2 familiar faces. 2 bodyguards wearing black combat uniforms and sunglasses. They weren't Yan Yunwei or the City Defense Army, but Deng's personal body. "Mr. Zhang Yi, we were sent by Mr. Deng Yuanbo. He would like to invite you to lunch today. Is that convenient for you?" Chapter 705, Magnificent. Zhang Yi was a little surprised by the Deng family's invitation. He didn't have any connections with the Deng family, and he had only been to Deng Yuan once before, at the invitation of Deng Shintong. Now that Deng Shintong had died in battle, he had thought that Deng Yuanbo was too sad to care about things outside the family. Who would have thought that he would invite him over for lunch? After some thought, Zhang Yi realized that although he was not sure of the purpose of the invitation, it was definitely related to the death of Deng Shintong. The Deng family was very influential in the Jiangnan region, and since the head of the family had personally invited him, Zhang Yi had to give the invitation face. He looked at the 2 bodyguards and smiled. "Is it okay if I bring a few friends?" The 2 bodyguards looked at Yang Xinqin and Liang Yu and nodded. Of course, their task was simply to invite Zhang Yi over. Whether Zhang Yi brought anyone with him or not would not affect the conversation that followed. "Very well, thank you." The 2 bodyguards bowed and made way. "This way, everyone." Zhang Yi and the others followed them into a car, which drove along a road that Zhang Yi was familiar with towards Deng Yuan. The black car had plenty of space in the back, and was not only warm and luxurious, but also had a built-in refrigerator with drinks and snacks. Zhang Yi looked at the driver and bodyguard in front of him and silently took out his satellite phone. He gave Liang Yu and Yang Xinqin a look, and the 2 immediately understood what he meant. This was going to be a text conversation. "Zhang Yi, the Deng family invited me over for dinner. What do you think? Do you think they mean well, or are they up to no good?" Liang Yu frowned and thought for a long time before saying, "This. I'm not sure." The flower on Zhang Yi's thigh curiously jumped onto his shoulder. Although it couldn't read the words, it looked eager to join in the fun. Yang Xinqin smiled and quickly typed 2 words on her phone. "Rope in." Zhang Yi glanced at Yang Xinqin next to him and continued typing, asking, "What do you mean?" Yang Xinqin gave a mysterious smile at the corner of her mouth. According to current intelligence, there aren't many top fighters in Blizzard City. The only ones we know about are the 6 investigation team leaders, Tu Yunlai, the head of the operations department, and Sun Luxuan, the guard by Zhu Zheng's side. Judging from Blizzard City's management style, it's unlikely that there are any hidden strong fighters. Even if there aren't many. The Deng family relied heavily on Deng Shintong, the top capable person, to maintain their status. But now, Deng Shintong is dead. This will have a very serious impact on the Deng family. Together with the death of Bien Junhua earlier, this has caused a serious problem with the balance in Blizzard City. Perhaps the time for a new reshuffle is upon us. The Deng family's invitation for you to go over there cannot be a move against you, as that would be of no use to them. The only possibility is to win you over and make you one of them. Yang Xinxin's analysis was very reasonable, and it made Zhang Yi's mood relax a little. In the world of the future, the top combat power would determine the strength of an influence. Ordinary soldiers and even thermal weapons are slowly losing their dominance on the battlefield. If this were not the case, how could the 13 of the Eclipse Moon be so arrogant in the Jiangnan region? He wants to recruit me, does he? Zhang Yi frowned. He typed, but I don't want to get involved in the power struggle in Blizzard City. He had never been a person keen on power. If he really wanted it, after solving the problem with Yuanqingji, he could have claimed credit from Zhu Zheng. Yang Xinxin thought for a moment and said, "You can test the other party's attitude first." But obviously, the Deng family will not choose to break with you now. Even if you refuse, you have to leave them room for fantasy. Zhang Yi nodded knowingly. He still understood the rules of social conventions. But it was also quite funny to think about. It was the end of the world, and yet there were still rules to be followed wherever a social system existed. After half an hour or so, the car arrived at Deng Park. It was still the same familiar place, but after arriving here, Zhang Yi felt that it had become a little more desolate and bleak. Even the expressions of the Deng family's escorts seemed a little more severe. The loss of the Divine Squad and the death of Deng Shintong had cast a heavy pall over the family. This mood has spread to the present day and is difficult to dispel. Upon arriving at the Deng Manor, they were greeted by an elegant man in a suit. He looked to be only in his 40s, but was handsome, elegant, and looked the part of a gentleman. This was Lianqing, the butler of the Deng family. "Mr. Zhang, and the two young ladies, welcome to the Deng Manor. Our master has prepared a sumptuous lunch and invites you all to join him." Hua Hua had been held in Yang Xinxin's arms the whole time. He meowed discontentedly, as if he was unhappy that Lianqing had ignored him. Lianqing was a little surprised to see this, and quickly laughed. "It's our bad hospitality. I'll go prepare the cat food right away." Hua Hua then contentedly narrowed his eyes and continued curling up in Yang Xinxin's arms. During the day, he basically slept all the time and was too lazy to do anything. Zhang Yi and the other two followed Lianqing all the way. This was the first time he had been to Deng Yuanbua's residence. As he walked into the living room, he saw dozens of beautiful women dressed in cheongsams standing on both sides, respectfully bowing to them. "Welcome Mr. Zhang Yi, Miss Yang and Miss Lian." The room was resplendent with gold and jade, and at a glance you couldn't even see the end of it. It was impossible to imagine how big the space inside was. Paired with these beautiful women, Zhang Yi deeply felt the sincerity of Uncle Deng Yuanbua. Yang Xinxin, however, frowned slightly, not really liking the Deng family's welcome. Lianqing, standing next to Zhang Yi, asked with a smile, "Mr. Zhang, are you satisfied with this environment?" Zhang Yi thought to himself, "I'm more than satisfied." But in front of Yang Xinxin and Liang Yu, he had to gather the smile at the corner of his mouth and nodded indifferently. Not bad. Zhang Yi wanted to give himself a full mark for this B. Even City was a little surprised by Zhang Yi's composure. He thought to himself, he really lives up to the master's expectations, with such a strong sense of self-control. Before, I underestimated him because he was just an ordinary warehouse manager, but now I realize that I was wrong. In a short while, the group walked through the ornate corridor and arrived at the dining area. The interior of the dining room was decorated in red, and it was very lively, almost festive. This made Zhang Yi feel a little strange. Was it really appropriate to make such a fuss when Deng Shintong's corpse was still warm? But then, maybe the old man liked a bit of a party. It was understandable. After the Ice Age, many people began to like this flaming red color. Seeing it would make you feel warm on a psychological level. Deng Yuanbua was wearing a red tang suit and was sitting at the huge round table with a smile on his face. Lianqing said, "Mr. Deng, Mr. Zhang Yi and the others are here." Zhang Yi walked over and said politely to Deng Yuanbo, "Hello, Mr. Deng." "Excuse me." Yang Xinxin and Lian Yu also said lightly, "Hello, Mr. Deng."